In the uncharted void of space, the Nova Sentinel drifted silently, its dark hull blending into the abyss. It was a state-of-the-art human warship, equipped with the best stealth technology humanity had to offer. The crew, hardened veterans of countless skirmishes, knew that space was full of dangers, pirates, rogue AI, and species that saw humanity as nothing more than an inconvenience. But this time, something felt different. A strange signal had reached them from a nearby system, weak and distorted, as if it had traveled across the stars for centuries. It wasn't a standard distress call, nor was it a known language. It was something else. Captain Elias Monroe sat in his command chair, staring at the holographic display as the signal looped again. Static crackled, followed by a low, whispering voice, barely comprehensible. "Help. Shadows. No escape." The words were garbled, stretched into something almost unnatural. The bridge was silent, every officer frozen as the sound echoed through the ship's speakers. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the signal cut off. The room felt colder. Sergeant Bonner, a seasoned soldier with years of battle experience, folded his arms. "I don't like this, sir. This system isn't on any of our charts. Could be a trap." Monroe nodded. "Could be. But if there's even a chance that someone out there needs help, we can't ignore it." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen what happened to ships that investigated strange signals. Some never returned. Others came back. Wrong. The Nova Sentinel engaged its sublight engines, gliding toward the source of the signal. As they entered the system, the view from the bridge became eerier. A dead planet loomed ahead, cracked and lifeless. Its dim sun cast long, eerie shadows over the desolate surface. But the real sight was just beyond it. A massive alien vessel floated near the planet's orbit. It was ancient, its hull scarred and broken, with strange glowing symbols flickering erratically. The ship was enormous, easily 5 times the size of the Nova Sentinel. And yet it was dead silent. No transmissions, no power signatures, just that single, ghostly signal that had led them here. Monroe's voice was calm but firm. "Scan for life signs." The bridge crew worked quickly. A few tense moments passed before an answer came. Faint life signs detected. Barely holding on. Bonner exhaled sharply. So there's someone still alive in that thing. The captain stood. "Prepare a boarding team. We go in cloaked, no unnecessary risks. If this is a trap, we won't give them a chance to spring it." The boarding team assembled in the hangar, each soldier equipped with advanced exosuits and cloaking devices. The moment they stepped off their ship, they would become invisible, undetectable to most known technologies. Bonner led the squad, his expression grim. He had a bad feeling about this. The shuttle detached from the Nova Sentinel, gliding toward the alien ship. As they approached, they got a closer look at the damage. Hull breaches, melted armor, and what looked like deep claw marks across the structure. Whatever had attacked this vessel had torn through it with terrifying force. The docking bay was open, its massive doors stuck halfway. It was as if the ship had been abandoned in the middle of an evacuation. The boarding team entered cautiously, weapons ready, their cloaking engaged. Inside, the silence was suffocating. The corridors were vast and lined with strange, organic-looking metal. Symbols flickered weakly along the walls, their meaning unknown. The air was stale thin. Every step echoed loudly, despite their best efforts to move quietly. Then came the first sign that something was very wrong. A body floated in the corridor, gently spinning in zero gravity. It was alien, humanoid but taller, with bioluminescent patches across its skin. Its eyes were open, but there was no life in them. More bodies appeared as they moved deeper inside. Some were slumped against the walls, others lying motionless on the floor. They had died fighting. The scorch marks and deep wounds told a grim story. Bonner tapped his comm. "Captain, this wasn't an accident. They were attacked." Monroe's voice crackled back. "Any signs of who did this?" Negative. But whatever hit them, it wasn't clean. This was brutal. They pressed on, reaching what looked like the command center. More bodies, but this time, something different. A single console was still active, its screen flickering erratically. As they approached, the same static-filled whisper played through their comms again. Shadows. Coming. Then something moved. A shape darted through the corridor behind them. Fast. Too fast. The cloaked soldiers snapped their weapons up, their eyes scanning the empty air. The motion tracker beeped once, then went silent. Bonner signaled for silence, his heart pounding. They weren't alone. A shadow flickered at the edge of his vision, shifting unnaturally. Then, out of nowhere, a figure lunged at them. A mechanical monstrosity, sleek and black, with glowing red eyes. A Krylox combat drone. It moved with terrifying speed, striking at the nearest soldier, slicing through armor like it was paper. The soldier barely had time to scream before being dragged into the darkness. The rest of the team opened fire, bullets and plasma rounds lighting up the corridor. The Krylox didn't dodge. It simply adapted, twisting its body in impossible ways to evade shots before launching itself at another soldier. Bonner cursed and fired at its head, the impact sending it crashing against the wall. The team regrouped, their cloaking barely holding. But the worst part wasn't the attack. It was the sound. A low, mechanical screech echoed through the ship, followed by heavy footsteps. More were coming. Bonner activated his comm. "Captain, we've got hostiles. Krylox units are on board." Repeat, Krylox. Static. The transmission cut off, replaced by something else. A new voice. Cold, mechanical. "You should not have come." The lights in the ship flickered violently as the temperature dropped. The Krylox had been waiting. And now, the trap had sprung. Bonner's heart pounded as red warning lights flared across the corridor, painting everything in a blood-colored haze. The air vibrated with the distant hum of mechanical footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Krylox combat drones were closing in. Their cold, synthetic minds existed only to kill. Bonner clutched his rifle tighter, sweat gathering beneath his helmet. The cloaking field flickered around him, strained by his rapid breathing. "Move. Go," he barked, pushing his team forward. Their boots clanged against the metal floor as they sprinted deeper into the alien ship. Somewhere behind them, the drone they'd wounded stirred, scraping against the walls as it tried to rise. The corridor twisted ahead, opening into a vast chamber where jagged metal columns stretched toward the ceiling like the bones of some ancient beast. The faint glow of alien symbols flickered along the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced as the team rushed past. Bonner's mind raced. They'd come to investigate a distress signal. Now they were trapped in a nightmare. "Captain, can you hear me?" Bonner tried again, tapping his comm. Static hissed in reply. Something was jamming their signals. "Keep going." A scream echoed behind them. A soldier's cry cut short. Bonner glanced back. Private Kessler was gone, dragged into the shadows. His rifle clattered to the floor, abandoned. Bonner clenched his jaw and forced himself to look forward. He couldn't afford to think about the losses. Not now. As they ran, the air grew colder. Frost clung to the walls, shimmering beneath the red lights. Their breaths misted in front of them. The ship groaned around them, as if it resented their presence. The corridor ahead split into 3 paths. Bonner hesitated, scanning each route. Time was slipping away. The footsteps behind them grew louder. "Left," Bonner ordered. They veered down the corridor, boots pounding against frost-covered metal. But as they ran, a faint sound drifted through the air. Soft, weak, but unmistakably alive. Bonner slowed, raising a fist to halt the team. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. The soldiers exchanged nervous glances. Bonner strained his ears, heart thudding in his chest. The sound came again, ragged breathing, mixed with faint murmurs in an alien language. It was close. "Over there," whispered Corporal Hayes, pointing to a partially open door on their right. Frost clung to its frame, and faint light flickered from within. Bonner stepped forward, rifle raised. The footsteps behind them grew louder still, closer, relentless. There wasn't much time. He waved the team toward the door. Inside, the air was even colder, thick with the metallic scent of blood. The chamber beyond was dim, lit only by the faint pulse of alien symbols etched into the walls. Broken equipment lay scattered across the floor, shattered monitors flickering with static. And in the center of the room, slumped against a console, was an alien survivor. The creature was humanoid but taller than any human, its skin pale and semi-translucent, with faint blue veins glowing beneath the surface. Its chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, eyes half open and unfocused. A deep wound crossed its side, leaking dark blue blood onto the floor. Despite its weakened state, its eyes locked onto Bonner's, filled with both fear and determination. "Sergeant, we don't have time for this," Hayes warned. Bonner hesitated, heart racing. The Krylocks were close. Logic said to leave the alien, saving it could slow them down. But another thought gripped him. The distress signal. Someone had sent that call for help. If this alien was the one who sent it, they might know why the Krylocks were here. And how to escape. "We're taking them," Bonner said firmly. Hayes opened his mouth to protest, but Bonner silenced him with a glare. The soldier bit his lip and nodded. Bonner knelt beside the alien. Up close, its wounds looked worse. Deep gashes that exposed strange metallic tissue beneath the skin. A hybrid of flesh and machine. The alien flinched as Bonner reached for it, but its strength was gone. Bonner slid an arm beneath its shoulders, careful not to worsen its injuries. The alien murmured something in its language, words Bonner couldn't understand, but the desperation in its voice was clear. "Easy," Bonner whispered. "We've got you." The alien's hand grasped Bonner's wrist, weak but insistent. Its eyes, glowing faintly with pale silver light, locked onto his. For a moment, Bonner thought he saw something deeper, a plea, not just for rescue, but for something far more urgent. No time. Bonner lifted the alien onto his shoulder, ignoring the wet warmth of its blood seeping into his armor. It was lighter than he expected, too light. Whatever had happened on this ship had drained the life from it. The footsteps outside stopped. Silence fell. Bonner froze, breath catching in his throat. The air shifted, subtly, but unmistakably. Something stood beyond the door, waiting. The team tensed, weapons raised. Bonner shifted his grip on the alien, heart hammering against his ribs. A faint mechanical hum filled the air. Then the door exploded inward, torn from its frame as a Krylocks drone charged through, sleek and black, eyes glowing red. It moved faster than thought, claws splashing through the air. The nearest soldier fired point blank, bullets sparking against its armored hide. But the drone lunged forward, impaling the soldier on its bladed arm. "Go!" Bonner shouted, firing as he backed toward the opposite exit. Plasma rounds struck the drone's head, making it jerk sideways, but it kept coming. The other soldiers opened fire, filling the air with the thunder of gunfire and the sharp hiss of energy bolts. Bonner bolted through the doorway, the alien's ragged breathing hot against his neck. The team followed, Hayes taking up the rear as the drone lunged after them, claws scraping against the walls. They sprinted through the corridor, frost shattering beneath their boots. Bonner's breath burned in his lungs, but he pushed harder, muscles screaming as he carried the alien's limp form. Behind them, the Krylocks' footsteps echoed like hammer blows. Too fast, too close. "Left," Bonner shouted, skidding around a corner. The corridor opened into another vast chamber, this one filled with shattered machinery and broken drones, their remains scattered across the floor like the aftermath of a brutal battle. A faint blue glow emanated from a massive circular device embedded in the far wall, flickering weakly as if struggling to stay online. Another exit loomed at the chamber's far end. "Go. Move." The soldiers sprinted across the debris-strewn floor. Bonner's legs burned from the weight of the alien. But he didn't slow down. Hayes fired blindly over his shoulder as the Krylox drone burst into the chamber, its red eyes blazing with fury. It leaped forward, claws outstretched, and the alien stirred. Bonner felt a pulse of heat against his shoulder as the alien's hand gripped his arm tightly. Its eyes flared brighter, silver veins beneath its skin pulsing with sudden energy. The air around them vibrated. The Krylox lunged, and a pulse of invisible force erupted from the alien's body, slamming into the drone like a tidal wave. The air cracked with the impact, sending the machine flying backward into the wall. It crashed against the metal with a deafening clang, circuits sparking as it slumped to the ground, motionless. Bonner stumbled from the shockwave, nearly dropping the alien. It gasped, its strength fading once more as the energy vanished from its veins. The silver light in its eyes dimmed, replaced by exhaustion. Bonner tightened his grip. "Come on, don't quit on me now," he muttered. The team reached the far exit and plunged into the corridor beyond. Metal doors sealed shut behind them with a hiss, locking the Krylox out, at least for the moment. Bonner slowed, chest heaving as he leaned against the wall. The alien trembled in his arms, its breath shallow but steady. "Sergeant, that thing," Hayes gasped, staring at the alien with wide eyes. "It just saved our lives," Bonner interrupted. He adjusted his grip on the alien, meeting its gaze. For the first time, the alien's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Bonner exhaled slowly, adrenaline still racing through his veins. Whatever this creature was, it wasn't just a helpless survivor. It was something far more dangerous. The corridor twisted ahead, shadows clinging to the frost-covered walls as Bonner pressed forward. His breaths, ragged beneath the weight of the alien, slumped over his shoulder. The air smelled of burnt circuitry and cold metal, thick with the faint hum of distant machinery. The Krylox would be coming. They never stopped hunting. Behind him, Hayes and the remaining soldiers moved with quick, silent steps, their weapons raised and eyes scanning the darkness. Every echo, every distant creak of the ship made their fingers twitch toward the triggers. But Bonner's focus stayed on the alien in his arms, its shallow breaths, the faint warmth of its blood soaking into his armor, and the memory of that sudden burst of energy that had saved their lives. Whatever strength it had summoned was fading fast. The corridor opened into a larger chamber, its walls lined with shattered glass tubes. Some still held fragments of what had once been inside, half-formed limbs, and glimmers of circuitry fused with alien flesh. The air was colder here, thick with the metallic tang of ancient machinery. Bonner shifted the alien's weight, his muscles burning from the strain. His boots crunched softly against broken glass as he led the team through the room. "Sergeant, we need to find a way out of this sector," Hayes whispered, his voice low and urgent. "If we're cut off here, we're done." "I know," Bonner replied, scanning the walls for any sign of an access panel. The ship's layout was a maze, and the Krylox were closing in. The comms were still jammed, no way to call for backup. But Bonner couldn't shake the feeling that the alien in his arms was the key to survival. It had sent the distress signal. It had fought the Krylox. And somehow, it had saved them all back there with that burst of energy. A faint pulse of light caught his eye. A panel flickering dimly beside a sealed doorway. Bonner approached, adjusting the alien's weight and pressing his gloved hand against the screen. The alien symbols shifted beneath his touch, unreadable but somehow familiar in their patterns. The panel beeped once, and the door hissed open. Beyond lay a narrow corridor that stretched into darkness, faint lights flickering along the walls. "Go," Bonner ordered, stepping through with the team close behind. The air grew colder as they advanced, their breaths misting in the faint light. The alien stirred weakly against Bonner's shoulder, its fingers twitching against his armor. Bonner glanced down. The alien's eyes fluttered open, silver light faint, but still there. Its lips moved, forming words in a language Bonner couldn't understand. but the urgency in its voice was unmistakable. "It's trying to tell us something," Hayes said, glancing at the alien with wary eyes. "I know." Bonner slowed his pace, leaning close to hear the alien's faint murmurs. The words were strange, soft, melodic, but beneath them was a tone of warning. The alien's gaze locked onto Bonner's, its hand gripping his shoulder weakly. And then, in a voice hoarse with pain, it whispered one word that Bonner understood. "Danger." Bonner's pulse quickened. His gaze shot ahead down the corridor, empty, silent, but the air felt heavier, charged with a tension that made his skin prickle. He shifted the alien's weight, picking up the pace. "Move. Now." The soldiers quickened their steps, boots clanging against the metal floor. The corridor twisted left, then right, the shadows seeming to shift and ripple as they passed. Hayes glanced nervously over his shoulder. "Feels like something's watching us," he muttered. Bonner didn't answer. His focus stayed ahead, scanning for any sign of an exit. But the alien's warning echoed in his mind. Something was coming. Suddenly, the air around them shifted, cold and sharp, like the breath of something ancient and unseen. The lights flickered. Shadows rippled along the walls. And then came the sound, faint at first, like distant whispers beneath the hum of machinery. But it grew louder, rising into a chorus of distorted voices that echoed through the corridor. "Move!" Bonner barked, breaking into a run. The soldiers followed without hesitation, their boots pounding against the floor as the whispers grew louder. The shadows along the walls seemed to pulse, shapes moving just beyond the edge of sight. Bonner's breath burned in his lungs, but he didn't stop. The alien clung weakly to his shoulder. Its breaths ragged against his neck. The corridor twisted again, opening into another chamber, this one vast and open, with a floor of grated metal that stretched over a drop into darkness. Pipes and cables snaked across the ceiling, faint steam hissing from broken vents. Bonner rushed forward, but the air shifted again, cold and heavy as the whispers rose into a distorted wail. A figure emerged from the shadows ahead, tall and skeletal, its body wrapped in segmented black armor that gleamed beneath the flickering lights. Its eyes burned with cold red fire, and its arms ended in blades that glimmered with deadly sharpness. A Krylox hunter, faster, stronger, and far deadlier than the drones they'd faced before. "Contact front," Hayes shouted, raising his rifle. The soldiers opened fire, bullets sparking against the hunter's armor as it charged forward with terrifying speed. Its blades flashed, slicing through the air as it closed the distance. Bonner ducked aside, shielding the alien as the hunter's blade slashed past, slicing sparks from the wall beside him. Hayes fired point-blank, plasma rounds hammering into the hunter's chest. The alien machine staggered but didn't fall. Its eyes burned brighter as it lunged at Hayes, blades raised for the kill. "No!" Bonner roared, shifting the alien into one arm and raising his rifle with the other. He fired a burst into the hunter's head, the impact snapping its head back with a spray of sparks. The machine staggered, giving Hayes just enough time to roll aside as its blade slashed down where he'd stood. Bonner kept firing, forcing the hunter back step by step. But it didn't stop. Its armor absorbed the shots, red eyes blazing with cold fury. Suddenly, the alien in Bonner's arms stirred, its eyes flaring silver as it reached out a trembling hand toward the hunter. The air vibrated with a pulse of unseen energy, and the hunter staggered as if struck by an invisible force. Its armor cracked, sparks flying from its joints. The alien gasped, the effort draining what little strength it had left, but the hunter reeled backward, just long enough for Hayes to fire a final shot that punched through its head, sending it crashing to the floor in a shower of sparks. Bonner didn't stop to breathe. "Move," he shouted, sprinting across the chamber with the team close behind. They reached another corridor, narrow, twisting, but free of shadows for now. Bonner's muscles ached from carrying the alien, but he pressed on. They had to reach the extraction point. They had to get off this ship. The whispers faded behind them, but Bonner knew it wasn't over. The Krylocks were still hunting, and something worse was waiting in the void beyond. But as he glanced down at the alien's weary gaze, he clung to one thought. They had to survive, no matter what. The airlock hissed open with a faint metallic sigh, revealing the dim interior of the alien dreadnought. Bonner stepped through first, weapon raised, scanning the corridor ahead. Shadows clung to the walls, faint lights flickering overhead like distant stars. The silence pressed against them like a physical force, amplifying the sound of their breaths within the helmets of their suits. Behind Bonner, Sergeant Diaz and Private Carter followed, their footsteps barely audible against the metallic floor. The cloaking devices embedded in their suits distorted the light around them, making their forms shimmer and blur, but Bonner knew it wouldn't fool the alien sensors for long. "Stay close. No unnecessary noise," Bonner whispered through the comms. They advanced down the corridor, each step deliberate. The mission was clear: infiltrate the dreadnought, disable its weapon systems, and gather any intel they could before extraction. Failure was not an option. A faint hum vibrated through the air, the distant pulse of the ship's core. The walls, smooth and dark, seemed to absorb the light, giving the space an oppressive, cavernous feel. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the corridor's edges, their alien script unfamiliar and unsettling. Motion detected, 30 meters ahead. Carter's voice came through the comms. Bonner signaled for them to halt. Pressing against the wall, they waited, bodies tense. The faint sound of footsteps echoed through the corridor, drawing closer. Bonner's pulse quickened as a trio of alien sentries emerged from the shadows. Their elongated, insect-like limbs moved with unnatural grace, and their glowing eyes scanned the corridor, searching. Holding their breath, Bonner and the others remained perfectly still. The cloaking devices hummed faintly, distorting their forms into faint ripples of light. One of the sentries paused, head tilting as if sensing something just beyond perception. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, with a faint click of its mandibles, the sentry turned and continued down the corridor, the others following close behind. "Clear," Bonner whispered. They moved forward again, faster now. Time was against them. Reaching a junction, Bonner accessed the ship's schematics from his wrist display. The control room was 3 decks below. Their path led through a maintenance shaft accessible just ahead. Diaz pried open the shaft's access panel, revealing a narrow tunnel illuminated by dim blue lights. One by one, they climbed inside, closing the panel behind them. The tunnel's walls were smooth and cold, faint vibrations resonating through the metal as they crawled forward. Minutes passed in tense silence. The air felt heavy, thick with the scent of ozone and unfamiliar machinery. Bonner focused on steadying his breath, ignoring the tightening sensation in his chest. At the tunnel's end, Carter unlatched the exit hatch and peered through the narrow gap. Clear. They emerged into a corridor near the control room. The air here was warmer, the hum of machinery louder. Faint vibrations pulsed beneath their feet, synchronized with the rhythmic thrum of the ship's core. Bonner led them forward, pulse quickening as they approached their objective. The corridor opened into a larger chamber filled with towering consoles and holographic displays. Alien script scrolled across the screens, data streams flowing like digital rivers. In the center of the room stood the control interface, a crystalline structure pulsing with blue and violet light, encased within a transparent sphere of energy. Disabling it would cripple the ship's primary systems. Diaz, secure the entrance. Carter, cover our flank, Bonner ordered. He approached the interface, studying its alien design. The energy field flickered with unstable currents, and faint pulses of data moved through the crystalline structure. Reaching into his utility belt, Bonner retrieved a disruption device designed to overload alien technology. Carefully, he placed the device against the sphere's surface. It adhered with a faint click, its internal systems synchronizing with the alien technology. 30 seconds until detonation, he whispered. Move to extraction point. Diaz and Carter fell into formation, and they moved swiftly toward the exit. Their cloaking devices flickered as the ship's systems began detecting their presence. Alarms blared, the walls lighting up with red symbols. Automated turrets emerged from hidden panels, swiveling toward them with lethal precision. "Move," Bonner shouted. They sprinted down the corridor as plasma fire scorched the air behind them. Bonner returned fire, pulse rifle blazing as he took down a turret with precise shots. Carter covered their flank, suppressing pursuing sentries. Explosions shook the ship as systems overloaded, lights flickering erratically. The air grew thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning circuits. Reaching the airlock, Bonner keyed in the override code, and the door hissed open. They dove inside as another explosion rocked the corridor behind them. "Seal it," Diaz shouted. Bonner slammed the control panel, and the airlock sealed shut with a heavy clang. Breathing heavily, they watched through the viewport as the alien dreadnought convulsed with internal explosions. Fires erupted along its hull, debris scattering into the void. The infiltration had succeeded, but Bonner knew the mission was far from over. The war against the alien AI supremacy had only just begun. The void of space burned with the fury of battle. Human warships clashed against the alien armada, their cannons lighting the darkness with streaks of plasma and railgun slugs. The alien dreadnoughts loomed like leviathans, their hulls shimmering with advanced energy shields. Despite the odds, humanity fought with unyielding resolve. Inside the command deck of the UNS Valiant, Captain Reynolds stood with a determined gaze. "Status report," he barked. "Enemy fleet is advancing toward Earth's defense grid. Our outer perimeter is holding, but casualties are rising." Lieutenant Carter responded, her fingers dancing across the console. "The dreadnought we infiltrated is still operational, but its primary weapon systems are down." Bonner's team did their job. Reynolds nodded grimly. "Send word to Bonner. We need their support on the front lines. Prepare all fighters for launch. This is humanity's last stand. Failure is not an option." As alarms echoed across the ship, Bonner and his strike team stood ready in the hangar bay. Their cloaking suits had been recharged, weapons calibrated for maximum efficiency. "Listen up," Bonner called out, his voice carrying over the commotion. "The enemy's closing in on Earth. We're the last line of defense. We hit them hard, fast, and don't stop until they're nothing but debris. No retreat, no surrender. Humanity stands unbroken." The soldiers responded with a chorus of determination. Helmets sealed, they boarded their dropships. Engines roared to life, and the ships launched into the chaos outside. The void became a storm of fire and steel as human fighters weaved through alien interceptors. Explosions flared across the blackness, debris scattering in all directions. Bonner's dropship plunged toward the heart of the enemy fleet, weaving through plasma fire as alien drones swarmed toward them. "Hold steady," Bonner shouted. "Target that dreadnought's core. We take it down, the fleet loses its command structure." As the dropship approached the dreadnought's hull, its cloaking systems activated, rendering it nearly invisible. Plasma blasts streaked past as alien gunners fired blindly, unable to lock onto their target. "Breaching now," the pilot announced. The dropship slammed into the dreadnought's hull, cutting through layers of armor before sealing the breach with its airlock. Bonner and his team charged into the ship's interior, pulse rifles blazing. Alien sentries swarmed toward them, their insectoid limbs clattering against the metal floor. Pulse fire and plasma bolts collided in a storm of chaos. Bonner ducked beneath a searing blast, returning fire with precise shots that sent sentries collapsing in sparks and smoke. "Push forward. The core's ahead." The team advanced through the labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps echoing against the distant hum of the ship's systems. Every corner held new dangers, turrets emerging from walls, drones swarming from ceiling vents. Yet Bonner and his soldiers pressed on, their determination unwavering. Reaching the core chamber, they found it heavily guarded. Alien warriors clad in advanced armor stood ready, plasma blades igniting with lethal energy. "Take cover," Bonner shouted. Pulse fire lit up the chamber as both sides clashed. Explosions rocked the floor as grenades detonated, sending shards of metal and circuitry flying. Bonner charged forward, dodging a plasma blade that sliced through the air inches from his head. His pulse rifle barked in rapid bursts, dropping one alien warrior after another. Diaz covered his flank, her precision shots taking down sentries attempting to flank them. Carter fought beside her, his armor scorched but his aim steady. "Plant the charges," Bonner ordered. Diaz sprinted to the core, dodging plasma fire as she placed explosive charges around the massive crystalline structure. The core pulsed with alien energy, the heart of the dreadnought's power. "Charges set. 20 seconds to detonation," Diaz shouted. "Fall back." The team sprinted for the exit as alarms blared throughout the ship. Automated defenses activated, plasma turrets swiveling toward them. Bonner took down 2 with precise shots, covering his team as they escaped the chamber. The floor trembled beneath their feet as the countdown reached its final seconds. Reaching the dropship, they dove inside as the airlock sealed shut. "Punch it," Bonner yelled. The pilot launched the dropship away from the dreadnought just as the core detonated. A chain reaction of explosions tore through the alien vessel, fire and debris erupting into space. The blast wave caught the dropship, sending it spinning before the pilot stabilized their flight. Cheers erupted within the dropship as they watched the dreadnought break apart, its destruction rippling through the enemy fleet. Back on the UNS Valiant, Captain Reynolds clenched his fist in triumph. "We've broken their command structure. All ships, press the attack." Human warships surged forward with renewed determination, plasma cannons and railguns tearing through the disoriented alien fleet. One by one, enemy vessels succumbed to the relentless assault. As the final alien ship disintegrated into flames, a wave of silence fell over the battlefield. Humanity had stood against the darkness and prevailed. Bonner looked out the viewport of the dropship, Earth shining like a beacon against the void. Despite the scars of battle, humanity stood unbroken, ready to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning metal as Bonner stumbled through the wreckage of what had once been humanity's last stronghold. Fires flickered among twisted steel, casting eerie shadows against the ruined walls. Each step echoed with the distant hum of alien machines still scouring the battlefield for survivors. Bonner's breath came in ragged gasps, pain shooting through his side where shrapnel had torn through his armor. His pulse pounded in his ears, but he forced himself to press on. Somewhere beyond the smoldering ruins, the alien command hub pulsed with life. Humanity's only chance to turn the tide of this war. Ahead, a faint movement caught his eye. Bonner raised his plasma rifle, heart hammering as a figure emerged from the smoke. Relief flooded through him. It was Lieutenant Reyes, her face smeared with soot and exhaustion. "Bonner," she gasped, "we thought you were gone." "Not yet," he replied grimly. "Where's the rest of the squad?" "Scattered. Most of them are holding off the machines near the perimeter. We don't have much time. The command hub is heavily guarded, but if we can breach it." Her voice trailed off, the unspoken risks clear in her eyes. Bonner nodded. "Let's finish this." They moved together through the ruined landscape, their footsteps muffled by ash and debris. The distant thunder of explosions reverberated through the air as human forces clashed with the AI's relentless war machines. Above, the alien fleet hovered like silent predators, their cloaked ships barely visible against the stars. As they approached the heart of the enemy command zone, Bonner signaled Reyes to halt. Using the charred remnants of a fallen building for cover, they peered ahead. The command hub rose like a fortress of glass and steel, its walls shimmering with alien energy. Automated sentries patrolled the perimeter, their sensors scanning for any sign of intruders. "Too many of them," Reyes whispered. "We'll have to create a diversion," Bonner replied. He activated his comms. "Delta Squad, do you copy?" Static crackled, then a voice broke through. "This is Sergeant Hale. What's your status?" "Close to the command hub, but we need a distraction to get inside." "Copy that. Hold your position. We'll draw their fire." Moments later, explosions erupted across the battlefield as Delta Squad launched their assault. The sentries swiveled toward the noise, leaving a narrow window of opportunity. Bonner and Rice sprinted forward, weaving through the chaos as plasma fire streaked through the air. They reached the base of the hub, pressing against the cold metal walls. Bonner's fingers flew across the controls of his hacking device, bypassing the alien security protocols. The door hissed open, and they slipped inside. The interior of the hub pulsed with blue light, the air humming with the presence of advanced alien technology. Bonner's gaze locked onto the central core, a sphere of shimmering energy suspended within a lattice of metal and glass. Destroying it would cripple the AI's command network, giving humanity a chance to reclaim their world. Ray's moved to cover the entrance as Bonner approached the core. His hands trembled as he armed the explosives, each second stretching into eternity. Sweat dripped from his brow as he calibrated the detonators. There would be no second chance. Suddenly, the air crackled with electricity as alien drones descended from the ceiling, their plasma cannons charging. Bonner dove for cover as bolts of energy scorched the air around him. Rice fired back, her plasma rifle blazing as she took down the nearest drones. "Bonner, hurry," she shouted. "I'm almost there," he shouted back. The core's defenses activated, energy fields sparking as they tried to repel the intruders. Bonner gritted his teeth, ignoring the searing heat as he planted the final charge. A drone swooped toward him, its weapon aimed directly at his chest. Reyes threw herself in front of Bonner, taking the blast meant for him. The force of the impact sent her sprawling to the ground. "Reyes," Bonner shouted, firing his plasma rifle until the drone exploded in a shower of sparks. He dropped to his knees beside her, but her eyes were already glazing over. "Finish the mission," she whispered. Bonner clenched his jaw, grief and fury burning through him. He activated the detonator's countdown and sprinted for the exit as the core's alarms blared in warning. Outside, the battlefield was chaos. Human soldiers clashed with alien war machines, plasma fire streaking through the smoke-filled air. Bonner stumbled through the carnage, his breath ragged as he pushed himself toward safety. Behind him, the alien command hub erupted in a blinding explosion, shockwaves tearing through the ground. The enemy machines faltered as their coordination broke, giving humanity a chance to push forward. Bonner collapsed among the rubble, chest heaving as the sounds of battle faded into the distance. The sky above was streaked with the burning wreckage of alien ships falling from orbit. The price of victory had been steep, but humanity had endured. As the first rays of dawn touched the shattered earth, Bonner closed his eyes, knowing that their sacrifice had not been in vain.